Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we are stepping into a world that's been romanticized, dramatized, and maybe just a tiny bit misunderstood by Hollywood. We are talking about the life of a gladiator. Forget the chiseled heroes strutting around like action figures. The actual reality was, well, let's just say you probably wouldn't survive this. Trust me, being a real gladiator was nothing like the movies. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you're listening late at night, drop a comment with where you are and what time it is. It's always cool to see where these stories reach. Now dim the lights, turn on a fan, and let's ease into tonight's journey together, allowing the noise of the modern world to drift away, replaced by the distant echoes of ancient stone and struggle. You stir on a thin layer of straw, the rough texture scratching faintly against your cheek. The air is cool, damp, and carries the persistent, earthy smell of stale sweat, unwashed bodies, and something vaguely metallic, like old blood mixed with rust. Sunlight, if you can call it that, struggles to penetrate the narrow slit high up on the stone wall, casting weak, dusty beams across the cramped space. This is your room now, or rather your cell. Shared with several others whose heavy, uneven breathing fills the silence as you slowly push yourself up. Your muscles ache with a dull, familiar throb. Not the satisfying soreness after a good stretch, but the kind that whispers of ingrained fatigue and minor, unhealed injuries. You swing your legs over the side of the low, wooden bench that serves as your bed. It creaks a little under your weight, a small sound in the otherwise quiet stone box. The floor is packed earth, cool under your bare feet. You can feel the individual grains and the occasional, sharp grit of something harder, maybe a tiny shard of bone. You try not to think about it too much. You look around the cell. It's simple, brutally so. Just the wooden benches, the straw, a single, heavy wooden door with a thick bolt on the outside. No windows at eye level, no personal belongings beyond the rough tunic you slept in. The walls are cold stone, marked with countless scratches, and the faded outlines of graffiti left by men who passed through here before you. What stories did they leave? What hopes or fears did they scratch into the stone before facing their fate? You'll never know. The sounds of the ludus, the gladiator school, are just beginning to stir. Distant shouts, the clang of metal, the lowing of animals destined for the arena floor alongside you, perhaps. It's a strange symphony of mundane and deadly. Hear someone coughing deeply in the next cell, a rattling sound that makes you wince. Sickness spreads fast in places like this. Good health isn't a given. It's a temporary, fragile luxury. Imagine yourself in this place for a moment. Not the grand Colosseum filled with cheering crowds, but the quiet, grubby reality of the training barracks. The smell, the cold stone, the constant ache in your limbs. It's a world stripped bare, where survival isn't about glory, but just making it through the day. The rising sun outside doesn't promise a new beginning, but simply another day of discipline, pain, and the ever-present shadow of the sand. You stand up, stretching carefully, feeling the stiffness in your joints. The straw clings to your tunic, a tiny, persistent reminder of the hard ground you rested on. Another day is starting in the ludus, and the sand outside is waiting. Your journey into this harsh, ancient world has just begun, and the morning light spilling through that narrow slit holds no guarantees, only the promise of sweat, training, and the slow march toward an uncertain future. The heavy bolt on your cell door scrapes open with a sound that grates on your teeth. One by one, you and the others are ushered out into a central courtyard or hallway, the air now filled with the muffled sounds of others emerging from their own stone boxes. There's no time for pleasantries, barely even time to fully shake off the lingering grogginess. You join a shuffling line, directed by one of the overseers, often slaves themselves, given authority and perhaps a bit more food for their loyalty. The air here is sharper, carrying the scent of damp earth and the acrid tang of sweat and urine from the nearby latrines. Soon, you're out in the training yard itself, a large, open space usually covered in packed dirt or sand. It's still cool in the early morning air, but you know the sun will soon beat down mercilessly. The first part of the day is often pure physical grind, running laps until your lungs burn, calisthenics that push your already aching muscles to their limit. Every movement is supervised by the doctors, the trainers. These aren't academic instructors, they are almost always former gladiators themselves, men who survived the arena. They wear their scars like medals and their words are sharp, often accompanied by the crack of a whip against the ground, or if you're slow, against your legs. Their eyes miss nothing, then comes the real work. Training with the palace, the heavy wooden post driven into the ground. You spend hours hitting this post, practicing strikes, thrusts, and blocks. Your weapons are made of wood, but they are intentionally much heavier than the real bronze or iron swords you'd use in the arena. This is to build strength and endurance, so when you finally wield the lighter, sharp weapon, your movements feel fast and effortless in comparison. You swing the heavy rudies, the wooden sword, over and over, feeling the strain in your shoulders and wrists. Your hands develop blisters that quickly turn into calluses, layer upon layer. You are assigned a style, maybe a murmillo with a heavy shield and short sword, or perhaps a retiarius, armed only with a net, trident, and dagger. A style that seems impossibly vulnerable until you see a master at work. Each style has its specific techniques, its own rhythms, and you drill them relentlessly. The doctors correct you with sharp words, a jab from a stick, or a lash from the whip if you're not focused. Discipline is paramount. Any sign of defiance or laziness is met with swift, brutal punishment. This isn't just about learning to fight. It's about breaking you down and rebuilding you into a machine that responds instantly to command. This whole operation, this brutal school, is a business. Your Lannister, the owner of the Ludus, invested heavily in you. You were bought, likely as a slave, or perhaps you volunteered, signing away your freedom and legal rights in exchange for food, training, and the slim hope of earning enough to buy your way out or gaining fame. The Lannister feeds you, houses you, trains you, and pays for your medical care, basic as it is. You are an asset, a valuable one if you're skilled, but ultimately property. The economics are stark. A dead gladiator is a sunk cost. A victorious gladiator brings in prize money and appearance fees and increases the value of the Lannisters' stable. It's a constant calculation of risk and reward, and your life is on one side of the ledger. As the sun climbs higher, the training yard becomes a swirling mix of dust, sweat, and the rhythmic grunts of effort. The clang of wooden weapons hitting posts or shields is a constant soundtrack. You push through the fatigue, knowing that failure here in training is just pain, but failure in the arena is final. Exhausted, bruised, and smelling strongly of sweat and dirt, you eventually get a brief reprieve. But the day is far from over, and the sustenance offered next is as calculated and peculiar as the training itself. Breakfast, when it finally arrives after hours of physical exertion, isn't the hearty, protein-rich meal you might imagine for someone training to fight to the death. You're given a thick, heavy porridge made primarily of barley. Sometimes there are beans mixed in, maybe some dried fruit if you're lucky, but mostly it's barley. This is why they call you hardship, the barley eaters. It's cheap, it's filling, and it provides carbohydrates for energy, but it's a far cry from the varied diet of the wealthy Romans who will watch you fight. Your body craves more, but this is what you get. Fuel, not sustenance in any luxurious sense, but the diet comes with a peculiar supplement, one that speaks volumes about the strange blend of folk wisdom and practical need in this world. Along with your barley mush, you might be given a drink made from the ashes of plants, mixed with vinegar and water. Yes, ashes. It sounds repulsive, and honestly it tastes earthy, acidic, and utterly bizarre. Ancient writers like Pliny the Elder mentioned this, suggesting gladiators drank ash water for strength, particularly to strengthen their bones. Modern science actually offers a grudging nod to this. The ashes likely contained calcium, and perhaps other minerals, which could have been a surprisingly effective, albeit crude, way to supplement the mineral deficiencies in their high-carb, low-meat diet. Imagine your vitamin supplement is literally drinking burnt plant matter. It's a gritty, tangible reminder that health here isn't about feeling good. It's about staying structurally intact enough to perform. Injuries are a constant companion. Every day you collect new bruises, scrapes, muscle strains. The training is designed to push you to your limit and past it. But more serious wounds happen too: twisted ankles, deep cuts from training spars that go a bit too hard, sprained wrists. The ludus has a physician, or at least someone who acts as one. Their skills can vary wildly. If you're lucky, you might have someone trained in the Greek methods, capable of relatively advanced techniques for the time. More likely, you get basic, often brutal, care. Wounds are cleaned with vinegar or wine, which stings like hell but helps prevent infection. They might be stitched up with coarse thread. Broken bones are splintered as best they can be. There's no anesthesia beyond maybe biting down on a piece of leather. You learn to tolerate pain, to push through it. Recovery isn't about comfort. It's about getting you back into training or back into the arena as quickly as your body will possibly allow. Many don't recover well. Chronic pain, limp, scars, these are the badges of your profession, worn until you can no longer stand. Perhaps one of the most bizarre aspects of your existence from a modern perspective is the fate of your bodily fluids. The sweat scraped from a gladiator's body after a fight was highly prized. Mixed with oil, it was sold to Roman women as a cosmetic, a kind of ancient, macabre beauty product. And your blood. It was believed to have medicinal properties, capable of curing epilepsy or even boosting fertility. After a fatal bout, Some spectators would rush into the arena to collect the still warm blood of the fallen, sometimes even drinking it. Think about that for a moment. The very fluids you shed in agony or death were seen as valuable commodities, talismans of strength or vitality, by the very people who came to watch you suffer. Your body in life and death was public property, its components holding strange, superstitious power for the outside world. Your journey through this peculiar, painful existence continues, always under the watchful, assessing eyes of those who own you. When the relentless training finally eases, usually in the sweltering heat of the midday or the cooling dusk, you retreat back to the barracks. These aren't individual cells outside of sleeping hours, but often larger, communal rooms where you eat your meager meals and spend the brief hours not dedicated to training or fighting. The air here is thick with the same persistent smells: sweat, unwashed bodies, the faint, underlying aroma of straw and damp stone, but it's also layered with the low murmur of voices. This is where you encounter the complex, unwritten rules of the ludus community. There's a hierarchy, of course. It's not just based on style or experience, though that plays a part. The longer you've survived, the more respect, or perhaps fear, you command. There are veterans who have seen dozens of fights, their bodies a roadmap of old wounds, and there are raw recruits, their eyes still holding a flicker of the terror they're trying to suppress. You learn quickly who to avoid, who might offer a gruff word of advice, and who is simply trying to survive just like you are. Camaraderie exists, born from shared hardship and the terrifying knowledge that the man sleeping on the bench next to you might be the one you face in the sand. Sometimes unlikely friendships form, bonds forged in sweat and the shared fear of the unknown. Other times, tensions simmer, fueled by rivalry, desperation, or the sheer stress of the environment. You keep your guard up, even here. It's in these moments of relative quiet that you might learn about the others. Many, probably most, are slaves bought specifically for the ludus. For them, there was no choice. Their lives and deaths are dictated by their owner, the Lannister. But then there are the auctorati, free-born men who voluntarily signed a contract to become gladiators. Imagine that for a second, choosing this life. Why would anyone do that? Some were debtors, hoping to earn enough to pay off what they owed. Some were adventurers seeking fame or excitement, perhaps even a chance to fight their way to wealth or recognition that was denied to them in conventional society. Others might have been disgraced citizens with no other options, seeing the ludus as a last resort. Signing that contract was a heavy act. It meant swearing an oath to endure being burned, bound, beaten, and killed by the sword, essentially giving up your legal rights and submitting entirely to the Lannisters' authority, treating you little better than a slave. It's a stark illustration of Roman values, where even desperate freedom could be exchanged for the brutal security of the sword. Zooming out, the social standing of all gladiators, slave or free, was rock bottom. You were infames, people lacking in social status and legal protection, lumped together with actors, prostitutes, and executioners, professions considered dishonorable. You were necessary for the spectacle, the entertainment of the masses and the elite, but personally you were often viewed with disdain, both feared for your violence and scorned for your position. Yet here lies one of the many paradoxes of your world. despite this crushing social and legal disgrace, a truly successful gladiator could become incredibly popular. Their names were shouted in the arena, their images scrolled as graffiti on walls. Wealthy patrons might support them, women might become infatuated with them. You could be legally nobody and simultaneously the most famous person in the city, a walking contradiction of Roman society. It's a strange, unsettling duality, a life lived in the shadows of the law but bathed in the blinding light of public adoration. And as your training progresses, the possibility, however slim, of stepping into that light begins to loom larger, pulling you toward the sand. Okay, the routine of the ludus is designed to make the training feel like your entire world. The rhythmic clang of wooden swords, the barked commands of the doctors, the taste of barley, the constant ache in your limbs, it all becomes a strange, brutal normal. But then comes the day the routine shifts, offering a glimpse, a taste, of what all this pain is ultimately for. It might not be the grand Colosseum, not yet. It could be a smaller amphitheater in a provincial town, or even just a practice arena set up for minor public games or private shows for wealthy patrons. The day arrives with a subtle tension rippling through the barracks. The usual morning grind feels different, sharper, more focused. There's a buzz, a mix of fear and something akin to anticipation in the air. Today isn't just about practice. It's about being seen. You're cleaned up a little, given a slightly better tunic than your usual training rags. You are fitted with actual armor, not the full, heavy gear of the arena, but enough to make you feel its weight, its unfamiliar solidity. The coolness of the metal against your skin is a strange sensation. The helmet, though perhaps lighter than the real one, still restricts your vision, muffles the sounds around you, enclosing you in a world of metal and your own breathing. Your training weapon feels lighter now, almost dangerously so, though you're probably given a blunted practice blade, called a rudis, or maybe even a sword with a protective tip. Then you are led out. Stepping from the dim confines of the ludus barracks into the open air, even a smaller arena, is disorienting. The light is brighter, the space vast, and then you hear it, the murmur of a crowd. It's not the roar of 50,000, but it's still a sound unlike anything you've experienced in the quiet training yard. It's a living, breathing entity of noise, 1,000 individual voices blending into a single, expectant hum. You are directed to the sand. The feel of the grit under your sandals is distinct. It absorbs sound, feels strangely soft yet unstable. You can smell the dust, the sun-baked earth, maybe the faint, metallic tang left from previous spectacles. Standing there facing another gladiator, a comrade from the barracks, perhaps, the training kicks in. You fall into the familiar stances, the practiced movements. It's a demonstration, a staged bout, designed to showcase skills, perhaps test out new pairings or styles, and entertain a smaller audience without risking valuable assets, i.e., you and your opponent in a fight to the death. But even without the lethal stakes, the psychological pressure is immense. 1,000 eyes are on you. Every parry, every thrust, every step is judged. You can hear scattered shouts, applause, maybe even boos. Your doctors are watching, evaluating. Your Lannister is watching, assessing his investment. You move, you fight, the sounds of metal hitting metal echoing in the space. the sand kicking up around your feet. It feels intensely real and utterly artificial at the same time. This isn't the chaos of a true battle, but the focused performance of violence. You get a fleeting sense of the arena's power, the way it amplifies everything, every movement, every sound, every drop of sweat walking out of that arena, back into the comparative quiet of the ludus. You carry the imprint of that experience. The sound of the crowd, the feel of the sand, the weight of the armor, the cold, appraising gaze of the spectators. You survived this small test, performed your part, but in the pit of your stomach, a new understanding has taken root. This was just a preview. The real performance, the one where the swords are sharp and the stakes are everything, is still waiting. And the silence that follows your return feels less like peace and more like the held breath before the storm. The air in the barracks on the day of a major games is different. It hums with a low frequency of dread and adrenaline. No training today. The morning is spent in a state of tense waiting. You are cleaned, oiled, and examined by the doctors one last time, not for comfort, but to ensure you are fit for purpose. Your body isn't entirely your own. It belongs to the spectacle. As the hours tick by, you see the different ways men cope. Some are quiet, withdrawn, staring into space. Others become boisterous, telling crude jokes, masking their fear with forced laughter. Some pray openly, murmuring names of gods you know, Jupiter, Mars, but you also see whispered appeals to darker, older deities, gods of fate and the underworld, not for victory, but for a quick end, or perhaps just the courage to face what's coming. You might see a gladiator spit 3 times over his left shoulder, a common way to ward off ill luck or the lurking spirits of misfortune. Perhaps you clutch a small, worn amulet hidden beneath your tunic, a smooth stone, a tiny bone carving, something that offers a sliver of perceived control in a situation where you have none. You might remember a dream from the night before. Was it a good omen or a bad one? Did the dream you win or fall to the sand? You chew on the memory, searching for meaning, for a sign, any sign that the fates are smiling, or at least not actively frowning. There are the stranger beliefs too. You might hear hushed talk about the color of the sky that morning, or the way a specific bird flew over the ludus walls. Every unusual event is scrutinized, interpreted as a potential sign. Did someone trip leaving the latrine? Bad omen. Did a slave drop a jug of water and it didn't break? Maybe good luck. It's exhausting, this constant search for meaning in random occurrences. But when your life is on the line, you grasp at any straw the universe seems to offer. You remember the stories, the whispers, the strange customs. The idea that the sweat you haven't even shed yet is already destined for perfumed women's skin. The unsettling knowledge that if you fall, your blood might be collected by spectators seeking its supposed healing properties. Your body is just a vessel, a temporary structure for the crowd's entertainment, and bizarrely, a source of strange ingredients for potions and cosmetics. This realization hits you sometimes, a cold wave in the heat of anxiety. You are not just a fighter. You are a commodity, and even your death has value to others. As the time draws near, the sounds from outside the ludus walls grow louder, the distant roar of the crowd gathering, the blare of trumpets signaling the start of the games. The tension becomes a physical weight in your chest. You check your simple gear one last time, the worn leather, the still strange feel of the real sharpened steel blade. You exchange tight, grim looks with the men around you. There's a shared understanding that transcends words. All the training, all the barley mush, all the pain and the strange rituals have led to this moment. The gate is about to open, and the walk to the arena is about to begin. The superstitions and prayers fall silent, replaced by the pounding of your own heart. Finally, the heavy wooden gate of the ludus swings open, groaning on its hinges. Stepping out is like stepping into a different world. The air outside is alive, vibrant, and overwhelmingly noisy compared to the muffled quiet of the barracks. The smells are different too, not just dust and sweat, but the sharper tang of wood smoke from cooking fires, the sweet, cloying scent of perfumes worn by the spectators lining the route, the musty odor of damp fabric, and the ever-present smell of the city itself. A complex blend of human and animal waste, spices, and something indefinable that just is Rome on a games day. You are part of a procession now, the pompa. Not at the front likely, but somewhere in the middle, marching in ordered ranks with your comrades. There are officials, musicians playing pipes and horns whose sound is quickly swallowed by the rising din, men carrying images of gods, and then the gladiators, armed and armored, a moving display of the violence to come. You walk through the streets, your sandals crunching on cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. The weight of your actual arena armor is heavy now, pressing down on your shoulders, restricting your movement more than the training gear ever did. The helmet feels like a cage around your head, the slits for your eyes narrowing your world to a focused tunnel vision, and then you see them. The crowds. They line the streets, packed together behind ropes or barriers, a sea of faces. They are shouting, cheering, calling out names, sometimes of famous gladiators ahead of you, sometimes general shouts that feel aimed directly at you. You can feel their eyes on you, thousands of them, a collective gaze that feels like a physical force. Children dart forward, quickly pulled back by their parents. Women lean from windows above. The air is thick with their anticipation, their excitement, their hunger for the spectacle you represent. They are here for entertainment, and you are the instrument of that entertainment. The noise builds as you get closer to the amphitheater. The distant murmur you heard from the barracks swells into a deafening roar. It's like walking towards the mouth of a hungry beast. The sound of the crowd cheering, chanting, and the blare of trumpets inside the arena itself washes over you in waves. It's overwhelming, disorienting. You try to focus, to shut it out, to remember the training, the movements, but the sheer scale of the public's frenzy is unlike anything the quiet training yard could prepare you for. You catch glimpses of faces in the crowd, eager, cruel, indifferent, sometimes a flicker of pity or curiosity. But mostly you see the collective mask of the spectator, a single entity consumed by the moment. You are no longer a person, you are a gladiator, an object of fascination and bloodlust. The street turns and you see it, the massive, looming structure of the amphitheater, its arches gaping like enormous mouths. It dominates the skyline, drawing you in, a vortex of sound and expectation. The air here, right outside the arena walls, vibrates with intensity. It smells of anticipation, dust, and the metallic scent of past events. As you are guided towards the entrance tunnel, a chill prickles your skin despite the heat of the day and the weight of your armor. The transition from the city streets to the cool, dim passage is abrupt. The noise of the crowd is momentarily muffled, replaced by the echoing sound of your own footsteps and the heavy breathing of the men around you. You know this tunnel leads to one place. There's no turning back. You have walked the path, endured the training, and now the sand awaits. You step out of the dim tunnel and into the blinding light and deafening roar. It hits you like a physical blow. The sun, high in the sky, is impossibly bright, reflecting off the pale sand. But it's the sound that truly assaults you, the sound of tens of thousands of voices, a single, monstrous entity of noise. It's not cheering or booing yet, just a constant, vibrating presence, the collective breath and expectation of the vast crowd packed into the tiers around you. You stand on the sand, the famous arena itself. It's a reddish-gold color, fine under your feet, but you know intimately what makes it this color, the blood of countless men and beasts that have stained it over the years. You can smell it faintly, the metallic, coppery scent mingling with the dry dust, the pungent odor of fear and something else. The recent, still-warm scent of animal blood from earlier hunts. The heat is intense, amplified by the stone walls of the amphitheater, pressing down on you through your heavy armor. Your opponent is a short distance away, also blinking in the light, also encased in metal and leather. You see their eyes through the slits in their helmet, the universal look of fear and determination you see reflected in every gladiator on the sand. Around you, other pairs or groups of gladiators are being positioned for their bouts, or perhaps a hunt scene is concluding, the sand already churned and stained. The arena is a chaotic, violent stage, with multiple acts unfolding simultaneously. The signals are given, the prefatory movements are done. Then the fight begins. There is no thought, only reaction. Training takes over. The weight of your shield, the balance of your sword, the practiced footwork. The roar of the crowd becomes a distant surf, replaced by the immediate, urgent sounds of combat. The rasp of metal against metal as blades parry, the thud of blows against shields or armor, the grunts of exertion. Your world shrinks to the meter of sand, separating you from your opponent. You see their eyes, their movements, searching for an opening, defending against their attacks, burst moment. And then, in the heart of the chaos, between one desperate block and the next thrust, a sliver of horrifying clarity pierces the adrenaline. You look past your opponent for a split second, past the immediate danger, and see the vast, curving wall of the amphitheater stretching up and away, packed with faces, a mosaic of humanity gazing down, utterly disconnected from the brutal reality unfolding at their feet. You see the thousands of eyes, not seeing you, but seeing the spectacle, the violence, the potential death. You realize with a sickening jolt that you are not a warrior earning glory, you are just meat on a stage. Your life, your pain, your desperate struggle, it is all just entertainment. You are the drama, the thought is fleeting, instantly replaced by the urgent need to survive. Your opponent lunges. You react instinctively, blocking with your shield, feeling the jarring impact up your arm, the metal ringing in your ears. You see your opening, a gap in their defense. You thrust with all your might, the point of your sword aimed at a vulnerable spot. The fight is a blur of effort, noise, and the terrifying proximity of death. Whether you win, lose, or the outcome is still uncertain, the sand has claimed your focus, demanding everything you have. But that moment of chilling realization lingers, a cold knot in your gut, a reminder of your true place in this vast, bloody theater. The moment the fight ends is often less dramatic than the struggle itself. It might be a clean strike, a crippling blow, or simply one fighter yielding, dropping his shield, raising a finger in supplication. The roar of the crowd doesn't immediately cut off. It shifts, changes quality, becoming a collective gasp, a cheer, or a disappointed groan. Your fate or your opponent's now rests in the hands of the editor, the man who funded these games, and ultimately the crowd. If you have yielded, you watch the editor, usually seated in a prominent box, waiting for his signal. You are acutely aware of the noise of the crowd, the surging tide of their opinion washing over the arena. A wave of hands, a specific gesture often depicted as thumbs pointing up or down, though the exact signal is debated by historians, the meaning was clear. Missio release, mercy, or pollis verso, turned thumb, death. If the crowd wants you to die, the editor is likely to comply. Your life hangs on a fleeting, often capricious, public whim. Let's imagine, for a moment, you survived. You are still standing, perhaps wounded, your body screaming with pain and exhaustion. You see your opponent fall, or maybe you see the editor grant mercy, a rare but possible outcome, especially if you fought bravely. Relief, sharp and dizzying, floods you, but it's instantly replaced by the cold reality of your injuries. You might have a deep cut, a broken bone, or internal damage you can't even feel yet in the adrenaline haze. Orderlies, often slaves, rush onto the sand, trained to quickly assess and remove fighters, dead or alive. You are helped, or perhaps roughly dragged, towards the gate, leaving a smear of blood behind you on the sand you just fought on back in the Ludus infirmary. A far cry from a hospital, more likely just a room with basic supplies. The real pain begins. The doctors or healers tend to your wounds. This is where the lack of advanced medical knowledge and hygiene becomes terrifyingly apparent. Wounds are cleaned, stitched, and bandaged, but infection is a constant, deadly threat. Fevers are common. Amputations are sometimes necessary, done brutally with saws if a limb is too damaged. Many survivors die slowly in the infirmary from infections or complications the crowd never sees. Chronic pain becomes your companion, a twisted joint, a scar that pulls tight, muscles that never fully heal. You've survived the arena, but you're still trapped in a body that is being systematically broken. Your value to the Lannister is recalculated. Are you worth the expense of healing? Can you fight again? But what if you didn't survive? What if you fell? The end is swift, brutal. You feel the sharp bite of steel, the impact, and then nothing. As the crowd roars its approval or disappointment, another figure enters the arena. This is the Orcus, often a slave dressed as Charon, the ferryman of the dead, or Mercury, the messenger god who guided souls to the underworld. Armed with a mallet, he delivers a final, heavy blow to the head of the fallen, ensuring death. It's a grim, ritualistic end to the spectacle. Then, your body, still warm, is checked, perhaps with a hot iron to ensure there's no life left. You are then unceremoniously hooked by a foot or ankle and dragged through the Porta Libertinensis, the Gate of Death, named after the Roman goddess of funerals. You are pulled across the sand you died on, leaving a dark trail, out of sight of the cheering crowd. Your body becomes the property of the Lannister once more. It's not given a respectful burial. Likely, it's taken to a place outside the city walls, perhaps a communal burial pit or incinerated. Sometimes, if you were famous, parts of your body or your blood might be collected for those strange, superstitious purposes we discussed. Your life, your struggle, your death, it all served a purpose for the living, for the spectacle, for the economy of blood. The cheers fade, the next combatants enter, and the sand is raked clean, ready for the next act. Your individual story ends, absorbed back into the brutal cycle of the arena. The gladiatorial games, in their immense popularity, lasted for centuries, a cornerstone of Roman entertainment and culture. From small beginnings, they grew into the colossal spectacles held in amphitheaters like the Colosseum, capable of holding tens of thousands of eager spectators. Why this enduring fascination with staged violence, with death as entertainment? It speaks to something deep within human nature, a complex mix of curiosity, thrill-seeking, the reinforcement of social hierarchies, watching those legally beneath them fight and die, and perhaps, for some, a confronting of mortality from a safe distance zooming out. The gladiator's life was an extreme example of human existence stripped bare, reduced to its most primal elements. Survival, pain, brief moments of potential glory, and the constant, looming presence of death. Their world was governed by the harsh laws of the Lannister, the fickle will of the crowd, and the brutal efficiency required to produce constant, novel forms of entertainment. It's easy for us, sitting comfortably thousands of years later, to judge or simply be appalled. But for the Romans, this was simply part of the fabric of life, a demonstration of courage, discipline, and the power of Rome itself. Consider the paradox again. The lowest of the low, legally and socially outcast, could become the most celebrated figures in the empire. Their faces on lamps, their names on graffiti, whispered by enamored women. It highlights a strange human tendency to lionize those who live on the fringes, who face the ultimate risk, perhaps because they represent a freedom from conventional fears that most people can only imagine. They were both despised and adored, disposable bodies and living legends. Think about the gladiator's lot compared to, say, a Roman soldier. A soldier might face death in battle, but he had comrades, a structured life, the possibility of promotion and a pension. A gladiator's life was designed to be short and spectacular. There was no retirement plan, save for the incredibly rare grant of the rudis, the wooden sword symbolizing freedom, usually only given after years of exceptional service and survival. Even then, the transition back into normal society must have been fraught with difficulty, marked by scars, trauma, and the lingering stigma of their former profession, in a strange, twisted way. The gladiator's life can make us think about our own relationship with spectacle and value today. We don't have arenas where people fight to the death for entertainment, thankfully. But we are surrounded by forms of entertainment where people put their physical and mental well-being on the line for our consumption. Extreme sports, reality shows focused on conflict and hardship, even certain forms of high-stakes competition. We consume their struggles, their triumphs, and sometimes their failures from a safe distance. The gladiator, in his sand-stained armor, stands as a stark, unsettling reminder of how thin the line can be between human experience and public spectacle, and how readily one can be consumed by the other. It's a heavy thought, I know. But that's the reality behind the myths. The life was hard, short, and brutal, punctuated by moments of intense terror and perhaps, if you were lucky, the brief, dizzying rush of survival. They lived and died for the entertainment of others, leaving behind only bloodstains on the sand and the echoing cheers of a long-vanished crowd. Thank you for joining me on this journey into a forgotten corner of history. I hope it gave you something to think about, maybe even helped you drift off to sleep knowing you don't have to wake up to the smell of dust and fear in a Roman barracks. If you enjoyed this, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me keep creating these stories. Feel free to leave a comment below if you have any thoughts or if you're still awake. Until next time, dim those lights, stay comfortable, and good night.